Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I'm Dr. David Pendergrass. In my experience, when I've done a lot of life coaching and counseling with people, something I encounter all the time with people is they're feeling anxious, and typically they feel anxious and they don't know why. Now, there are a lot of reasons why a person can feel anxious, of course. If you're listening to this, you might be able to list several things. But something I find that's usually is at the root cause of all unhappiness are unmet expectations. Unmet expectations. Now, I want you to think very clearly about this, because if you feel anxious, I'm telling you, I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that at some level you're feeling anxious because of unmet expectations. Think of it this way. Fill in the blank. Finish the sentence. I really need to do. Here's another one. I really need to be. Or I really should be, or I really ought be. This is really common, not universally, but it's very common with females. I really ought to be thinner. I really ought to look a certain way. I really need to be a certain poundage. Mothers, a very, very common symptom amongst women who are, of course, mothers, suffer from this all the time. Real mothers don't do this. If I were a good mom, I would feel blank. Good moms don't stress like this. If I were a good mom, I would be doing X, Y, Z. It's very, very common. And they get very jealous and very hurt when other moms seem to meet those expectations better. It feeds into their insecurity. So they go to school and a mom shows up with 14 lunches delicately wrapped and breakfasts, dinners for the kids. They're ready to go. The house is immaculate. Whatever the standard is for you, whatever it is your measure is for yourself, I really should be blank. Good moms do blank. Good dads do this. Good fathers are this. Those are expectations. Now, when you don't meet your own expectations, you fail yourself. You fail yourself. And that hurts. And that causes anxiety. And many, many people in my life who have terrible anxiety, they're experiencing it because they have these expectations on the inside that they're not meeting. Now, what's also very common when people have these unmet expectations is they never thought about it. And maybe you're like that. Maybe you've never really considered the fact that you have a whole host of expectations, standards, definitions, or models or molds to which you are trying to appeal and reach and perfect, and you're not meeting it. One of the worst parts about that is that when you feel like you have failed yourself, it's very easy to slip into a feeling of course, a negative label, which is, I am a failure. I'm not good enough. I'm not valuable enough. See, it's one thing to feel badly about performance. It's another thing to feel badly about yourself. There's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is when you feel conviction for something you've done wrong, when you've done something wrong. Shame is when you feel bad for being you. There's something wrong with you. And there's a big difference. And many people I meet in my life, particularly religious people, by that I just mean any religious person in my line of work, it typically is Christians, they are not just guilty, they carry shame around. And you can hear it in their prayers, you can hear the way they talk. They feel a terrible burden that they are losers. Well, that's just not true. You might have been a sinner before coming to Christ, but now you are a new creation. But they feel constant shame by other unmet expectations that they placed upon themselves. So let me ask you two questions. Two questions, and then I want you to ask yourself these questions to help you get rid of these unmet expectations, or rather at first, just to label the expectations. Where do these expectations come from? That's the first question. Where do these expectations come from? I want you to think very deeply about that. Where did I get this expectation that perfect moms do blank? Where did I get the definition of perfect dad, perfect child, perfect son or daughter, perfect Christian? Where do these definitions come from? Where do these expectations come from? Really think about it. Most of our expectations come from some kind of authority figure. A mom or dad is almost always the number one source. It could be another authority figure in our life, maybe a grandfather, grandmother, depending on who raised you. Could have been a youth minister. Could have just been an elder, a friend's parent. Someone who spoke something over you and you thought, you know what, it just clicked inside of you. Whether you want it to click or not, it got inside of you. Now you have an expectation. But you got to be real clear about where it came from. Now the second question is, so if number 1 is where did it come from, 2 is, do you want it? Do you want that expectation? And the reason why it's so important to ask these 2 questions is because it helps you, and you need to make these expectations conscious, not subconscious. They need to be deliberate. You need to be able to write them down in a journal. So conscious and so articulate that you're able to articulate it to someone else. For example, I have the expectations to be a certain weight forever. Well, is that it? Okay, where'd that come from? That came from my mom, because my mom was always saying these mean things about her body, and I always thought that was the definition of beauty. All right, secondly, do you want to have it? Do you want that expectation? I'm telling you, it's very difficult to heal from anxiety, and what I'm about to lead to in just a second, negative self-talk. It's very difficult to heal from them if you're not making these expectations explicit and conscious. They literally do put them in the different part of your brain's hemisphere, and then you can analyze it. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. When I meet with counseling with couples, particularly or individuals, it doesn't really matter. But just the other day, it's fresh in my mind with a couple. She said, "Yeah, when you say it like that, it sounds stupid." And she laughed. I said, "Well, don't be ashamed of it." But it is true. When you say it loud, it brings like clarity to it. When you say it like that, oh my goodness. Well, no, I don't want to. That's a ridiculous expectation. That's very therapeutic. It's very healing. So 1 is, where did the expectation come from? 2, do you want them? These expectations are the cause, almost always, these are the cause of negative self-talk. Now, some people don't have a problem with negative self-talk. A lot of people do. If you're listening to this right now, you made it this far in the podcast, and you suffer from negative self-talk, saying mean things about yourself, saying bad things about yourself, saying hurtful things about yourself, things that other people don't know that you think about yourself. If you suffer from that, unfortunately, you're not alone. That's very, very common. I often ask people, if I were to attach a megaphone to the side of your mind, let's pretend it's near your brain, and everyone could hear it. Not necessarily what you think about other people, that might be bad enough, but what they heard you say about yourself. How would you feel? And usually when I ask that question, people either start getting very embarrassed, and they turn red, or they start squirming in their seats or whatever. The point is, a lot of times we don't want to hear people to say things we say about ourselves. If that's you, if I just put my finger right in my face up in your grill, as it were, if I put my finger on something that's painful in your life, I'm telling you, probably this negative self-talk that you've been practicing for probably most of your life, it comes from these unmet expectations. At some point, some authority figure spoken to you, and you put those expectations deep inside your belief system. And then, of course, when you don't meet those expectations, the only logical thing to you, in your mind, the only logical thing to do is to berate yourself when you don't meet the expectation. It's the only logical thing to do for you. And so it feels normal. So you walk around day after day after day, having these oftentimes perfectionistic expectations that you don't meet. You fail at, then you feel failure, you feel shame and feel like a failure, and then you berate yourself, say very mean things about yourself on the inside, which then, of course, makes you feel very badly. Well, then what happens? Well, then you're in what's called the child state. And people then respond in one of 2 ways. If you stay in constant self-criticism on the inside, you have 1 of 2 options, usually. I've seen this over and over and over again. One option is you stay in a constant kind of hypersensitive mode where your self-esteem is very low and you constantly need validation. You constantly need what we call strokes. Tell me I'm good enough. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm pretty. Tell me I'm smart. You need it. You're starving for it. It's like gasping for air. In your mind, you are drowning because you're criticizing yourself so much because you can't meet these expectations. So then you are starving. You're just gasping for air. Can someone praise me? Can someone praise me? And when they don't praise you for the smallest things, it really, really, really hurts your feelings. You're hypersensitive. You're hypervigilant, looking out for those compliments. You might beg your spouse for them, your friends for them. You might throw out those things like, "I sure worked hard. I'm sure I've done a good job, I think. Do you think I'm smart? Do you think I'm pretty? Do I look thin in these jeans? Do I look thin in this? Do you think I'm making enough money for the family? Do you think? And so you need it so badly because inside you've been saying such mean things about yourself. There's part of you that's really hurting because you've been berating yourself for so long and you're desperate to hear some validation. That's one option. You become hypersensitive. The other thing that's very, very common is you don't become just hypersensitive, you become rebellious. You're the rebellious child. And so to rebel against that, you do a few things. You might say, forget it. I'll never meet that weight goal I have, so I'm just going to eat 12 donuts right now. I'm going to have every cheat meal. Forget it. If I can't do this, whatever, I'll just go all in. Who cares? If I can't do, I've already broken my expectation one time. I can't be perfect. I might as well just go in and throw my hands up. And that is often, very often, the cause of addictions and compulsive behavior. And then you do it for a while, then you stop. You come to your senses. No, I can't do this. It's too much. Got to calm down. Oh God, I'm so sorry. You do well for a while, and the cycle starts all over again. It just starts all over again. You have expectations, you don't meet them, you say mean things about yourself, and then, of course, you rebel again. And you stuff your face, or you do this, or you look at that, or you talk about whatever. There's a rebellious kind of part of you. I also forgot to mention, when you are hypersensitive, the other side, oftentimes when you're hypersensitive, you take that hypersensitivity on other people. So if they don't praise you, if they say one thing, if they even ask a question that's even kind of sort of related to your pain, you will lash out at them. You lash out. If, say, for example, you have a problem with your weight and your friend or say your spouse says, hey, what's for dinner? Well, fine. You want to make food, you eat it. Or whatever. You might just, in other words, it comes across as a bit crazy because it's so hypersensitive. So if you find yourself being hypersensitive, having a short fuse very quickly, or particularly if your spouse or someone, a good friend knows you or a family member says, you seem real extra sensitive, your default stance is going to be defensive. No, I'm not. You're just being mean. Well, if I encourage you here, it'd be one thing is to calm down, take a breather, and maybe they're right. Maybe you're being hypersensitive, or maybe you're being rebellious, and you're cycling over and over and over in rebellion against this definition or expectation in your head that you cannot match. It's a terrible cycle, but you can break it. This is related to another thing. Expectations are related, of course, to beliefs that we have on the inside. Finish this sentence. I will always be. I will always be. Did you say something positive right then or negative? I will always be. Those are related to expectations too. Where did that belief come from? Where did the belief come from that you just said, I will always be whatever? Where did that come from? Do you want that belief? Do you want it? Listen, you'll always live up to the standards of your beliefs. You'll always live up to the standards of your beliefs. I'm telling you, this is just the way the world works, the way human psyche works. If you think you will always be that person with bad boundaries, then you will always be that person with bad boundaries. If you always think you're the girl who always falls for the bad guy, you'll always fall for the bad guy. If you think you'll always be that overweight person, then you will always be that overweight person. If you think you'll always be the person who's trying hard and reading and doing the best you can with your mind, and you'll always be the person who's reading. If you think you're the person who's always fit and takes exercise very seriously, you will always be fit. You will, I guarantee, live up to the standards of your beliefs. Now, you got to be real gut level honest. Gut level honest. You can say you believe something. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right, brother. Oh, yeah, I believe, But really, what do you believe? What do you say to yourself on the inside? You'll live up to that standard. Well, expectations can be wonderful, they can be horrible. Beliefs can be wonderful, they can be horrible. What are yours? What are yours? Well, David, what do I do? All right, well, let's imagine for a second, if you've listened this far, it's because you might have some unmet expectations, these maybe perfectionistic tendencies or false beliefs. You need, number one, step one, you need to write it down. You need to write it down. Get a journal, get a piece of paper, a Word document, I don't care, and you need to get it out of yourself. Write a long list of false beliefs that you have, or just put beliefs, and a list of expectations you have. And you need to categorize them. And you need to write them down one column when you get them all written out. particularly ones that are false or the ones you want to change, and put that on one side of the column, say on the left side. On the right side, you need to replace it. You need to replace it. You need to write something else down. So on the left side of it says, I expect to always be whatever pounds because I believe that that pound weight is valuable or pretty. On the right side, you need to write, may not always be that weight, and it's irrelevant because my value is not in what I weigh. On the left side, you might say, I believe that I'll never have that job that I want. I'll never be the person I think I can be, and people always tell me I was a nobody and I can't make it. That's a false belief. On the right side, you might say, that's completely false. Of course, the true belief would be, of course I can. I need to figure out what my skill set is, my giftedness by God, and I need to work my hardest to get those things perfected as best I can. It means I need to go to school or get training or find a mentor. But I got to get to work. I'm not going to sit back and expect myself to be a victim the rest of my life to something Daddy said when I was 7 years old. Now, that was a long paragraph, but nevertheless, maybe it is. And then what happens, so step one is you got to get out of yourself. You have to be conscious about it. Put it to the forefront of your mind. Oh, that is exactly what I expect. That's exactly what I believe. And by the way, you can do this anywhere. If you're staring at a magazine at Kroger and you start getting very anxious, why am I feeling anxious? Why is my heart racing? Did you just say something mean about yourself in your mind? Why did I just say something mean about myself? What was I thinking? What just happened? What was the trigger that made me say something mean? And then what expectation do I have? Why did I say that mean thing about myself? Why is it okay to say such mean things about myself? It's because you've done it for so long. It's normal, which means your brain has now formed a habit. And habits are your fault. And they're my fault. They're in our brain. You can change habits. So the first way to change a habit, number one, write it down, get it out of yourself. And two, you have to replace it with a true belief or a true expectation. You have to. You can't just say, that's false. You have to say it's false and replace it. You can't just create a vacuum. You have to replace it with something true. You have to. 3, you need to surround yourself by people who love you unconditionally. And you need to open up about these. If there's one trusted Christian friend with whom you can show this list and say, I need your prayers. I need your accountability. I need your help. This is going to be a long road. And it would mean a lot to me if you were part of my recovery. Would you help me? Would you join me on my journey? Now, friend, you're not responsible for my healing. I am responsible for my healing. It's completely my responsibility. You are not having to fix me. So all I'm asking for is just the help, the grace from time to time. If you'd reach out and pray for me, if you would, when we have lunches together, or send me a text or a tweet, whatever, and said, hey, how's internal dialogue going? Are you saying good things about yourself? Those kinds of things. Now, in this whole process, I'm telling you, you're probably going to feel kind of sad. There are going to be times when you write these expectations out and these beliefs, and it's going to make you sad. You're going to cry. You should cry. You should. Because there's a hurt child inside of you that's been berated and bruised for a long time. And it's time for that child to heal. And the child inside of you that's hurting needs a hero. And the hero is inside of you. The Holy Spirit, I'm telling you, especially if you're a Christian, the Holy Spirit will inspire you to say the things you should be saying about yourself. God does love me. God is not done with me. My value is not placed in X, Y, Z. That's not where my value is. My value is placed because God says I'm valuable and He loves me. My faith and my trust in Him is what sets me apart and sets me free to live a life that He's called me to. Praise God, that's true. There is hope for you. Don't give up, my friend. Don't give up. Get real serious. Starting today, what are your expectations? What are your beliefs? God bless you. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. To listen to other podcasts, go to iTunes and search up A Glimpse of the Kingdom. A Glimpse of the Kingdom. There you can subscribe to all the podcasts. They'll be automatically updated to whatever program you use, or of course through iTunes. Or you can go through my website, davidpendergrass.com. If you want more information about the marriage retreats that I lead, or more information about the consulting that I do, go to davidpendergrassconsulting.com. If you'd like to contact me directly, find me on Twitter at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass, and I will do my best to respond to your Twitter comment or question, and maybe even address your issue on the air on my podcast. I'll see you online.